Yeah, man. First of all, I appreciate you having me on, and appreciate everything. All those guys were saying earlier too, Coach Coltharp and all that stuff. Those guys do a good job. That channel's pretty cool. I wish I had some time to do that type of stuff as well, but he does a real good job with that. So, and kind of like I was saying earlier, I kind of want to make this as open forum discussion type stuff as you guys want to make it. So if you got questions, just don't hesitate to ask him, and I'll try and help you as much as I can. And I got a good amount of stuff. I've tried to present this mesh topic before in the past, and I could never really get through it. So with that being said, I added even more stuff, which is probably the worst thing I can do, but it is what it is. So yeah, I'll go ahead and kind of start up this. All right, so here's a little bit of our stuff. I was going to talk about mesh and six, which is our 4 verticals play, just as much as I can. I also want to talk about scripting or our 3-day install or anything like that you guys want to talk about. But that stuff I'm going to kind of brush through fairly quickly, unless you really want to talk about it in more description. But that's kind of our 3-day install. So basically, it's really sort of 4 days, because our first day, what we do is we throw 6 the entire day. So 6 is our 4 verticals play, and what we're doing is we're teaching tags to our outside receivers as well. So we have different hand signals for our routes. Basically, we throw a lot of stops, a lot of corners or outs, as most people know them, slants. So I mean, it kind of varies up, but we're always teaching. We're teaching tags. We're teaching our 4 verticals play. That's kind of our first day. It also kind of goes into our numbering system and our screens, and that all kind of link together. But there's kind of our true day 1, day 2, day 3, which is really like day 2, 3, 4. But anyway, that's kind of how we do it. We really hit mesh a bunch in that first day, that true day. Hit it again in the second day. Not quite as much in the third day, but we're also kind of running through everything, and that's kind of how it gets, where you see your shallows and stuff like that. Our script, that's kind of what my script looks like. I heard somebody in Coach Coltharp's, session earlier talk about, what does your play sheet look like? That's kind of what ours looks like. And then scripting, how I kind of go about it. I do it by formations mostly for the open area there. Ace, which is our 2x2, trips, 2-back, and I kind of want some range of 10 to 12 in 2x2, 11 to 14 of them within trips, 2-back. You can see 7 to 9, and then I break up basically our quicks, our 90s, and our screens and runs. Kind of pair our quick game with our run game as well, which you could sort of see there. Like at the top, it's just Ace, run, Randy, Larry. Well, run is giving your quarterback the option to decide where the ball's going to be run and which run play. We give him kind of total freedom on that. And then just the Randys and Larrys are your quick screens as far as attaching them to it. And that's kind of how it goes. So most of our quicks are kind of paired with our runs again. We want to dress up our good stuff, basically, that we've been good at all year long. So like if we, in week 1, we just line up and run a bunch of ace 8, which is the Y corner play that Coach Coltharp talked about earlier. Week 2, what we're going to do is a lot of like more ace H move 8 or early H move 8. So we're doing the same thing. We're kind of dressing up week to week and kind of changing the appearance of it a little bit. And sometimes we'll just line up and run the same play. It doesn't really matter. But we don't really hold our best stuff back either. We're going to throw our best stuff at you early as best we can, and kind of go from there.
Coach, yeah. You just asked, what are the red numbers in your script?
The red numbers are the jersey numbers of the player that I want in that package. So the 32s, that's like a 20 personnel package. That's our 2-back. So he's number 32. So just kind of as a self-reminder for me to be like, oh, we got to get number 32 in there, or 11, like number 11. He's a wideout, just a certain wideout that I would want in on that play. We do rotate wideouts as much as we can, but it's not a ton with the school that we're at. But we would like to rotate them more. So yeah, generally on that one, the backs are on the right, the right number, and then the left number would be like a new wideout. That's kind of how I do it. And then anything like a RPO or a pop or anything like that, that would go under screens. Anything kind of unique would go under screens on that. That's kind of the basics of it. So here's formations. These are our formations, and we do not get in a whole lot of formations. There are more, especially when you get into old school air raid. You talk to Coach Coltharp and those guys. They're almost necessarily called old school, but it's the original way that they're doing it. We call it 2x2 ace, and a lot of what we do, if you don't know, is almost identical to how Coach Leach in Washington State does it. So we signal things pretty much the same. We call things pretty much the same. We line up. We do it all basically identical to that. And I was up in Pullman about a year ago to the day, and spent a week up there with them, and then just have watched a bunch of their tape through the years. And, we basically tried to clone it as best we could and run it that way. But there's ace. Empty, we just moved the F, which is our tailback, to that number 3 spot. It's the only formation that we have that's kind of directional, where we have a right and a left call. Late would be, trips left, early trips right, essentially. Blue is to the left. That's different than how Coach Coltharp and Coach Mummy and those guys do it. And green is our call to the right. So basically, if you want to know the history of air raid terminology and how this whole thing went, that's a whole nother discussion. But the way they used to do it, and heck, even Leach did it when he was first at Tech. I guess you can kind of see my mouse here, but they would take the Z and move him between the X and the H right there, and they would call that ace flip, and that's how they got to late, which they didn't have late really back then. They had ace flip, and then they still had early, and then you could do other things like ace flop, which would move the Z outside the X right there. So flop was outside, flip was inside. That's kind of how you got to your formations. And so Coach Coltharp talked about how the Y never moves, and his with ours, the outside guys never move. The X doesn't move, the Z doesn't move. They're always on the outside. The only guys that really move for us are the slots. That's kind of how we do it. And then there's a numbering system too. You can see there the X is always 1, the H is 2, the Y is 3, the Z is 4. That's kind of useful for us for screens and shallows. And so it doesn't really change. So even if you get into early, the X is 1, the Y is 3, the H is 2, the Z is 4. So, you got to remember your number just like you kind of remember your position at the same time. So we'll get into mesh, which we call everything by the numbers. So, 91 shallow, 92 mesh, 93 is the wheel play, 4 sail, 5 is cross, 96 is curl. We don't have a 97 and 98 smash. It's kind of how we do it. But 92 here, inside receivers, they have their outside foot up. Coach Coltharp talked about that, him doing that as well. Outside receivers have their inside foot up. And the big reason we want that is kind of a vertical push. So if you imagine your outside foot being the one that's up, we want 1-2, just that 1-2 vertical push on these mesh plays, and not necessarily shallow as much. You want that more flatter, but with the mesh getting 6 yards, we want to push vertical. We were having an issue years back of people always just trying to knock down the mesh. And that's fine if you want to knock down the mesh because you're giving up your outside routes generally on that, but which is really your first look. But we did want to, always just stress, we're pushing it vertical first. So just to not give that quick, they're going in illusion. Plus, when we were getting real flat, years ago, I went on a talk with Coach Mackey and talked about running real flat. I want them real flat. We also ran into issues against real good teams, had real good defensive lines of just kind of boom, knocking the ball down, being able to bat the ball down. So really, truly pushing to 6 yards is kind of the rule on that. So we set the mesh at 6 yards or under the mic, whichever one comes first. And we don't really care, but we're going to aim for 6. But if the mic steps up, we set it underneath the mic with the Y being on top, or the single. So, there's times where we're in blue where we actually take the Y out of the game. And then in that sense, the single is actually under. The H is on top. The single's under. So the single is always under, which I have kind of written on there too. And so, we, based on the play, whether it's just base 92 or 92 post wheel, we teach those outside guys off steps as far as how they're going to get to their play. I'll go over all that. I'm just kind of touching it. We generally like to teach it off steps to kind of get a more of a rhythm down, just more of a consistency down. There's our stats on 92. It varies more and more. We threw it more last year than we ever have. Threw it 84 times. Touchdown interceptions always there. We always, for some reason, throw picks on this thing early in the year, and then it really cleans up by the end. I think that's just the work that you get, against live bodies, because there's so many moving parts on it. By the end of the year, we're always a lot better on it than we are at the beginning of the year. It's just kind of how it goes, but it's a play that we do, hang our hat on. We're big on 92, 95, and 6, which is, mesh, cross, and 4 verticals. That's kind of what we, stable our true drop back game off of. Not really care too much about that, but all right, I'll get into some diagrams of the play and kind of show you what we do. All right, so that is our 2x2 mesh, and that's a lot different than how Coach Mummy's going to run it. How a lot of guys run it. It's kind of the Mike Leach way of doing it. That's just how we do it. We have 2 capped outs on the outside, which we call them corners, but they're outs. So there's 6 steps. So inside foot up, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. All right, on your 6th step, your 7th step gets to a 45-degree angle. 8th step gets flat. So we kind of want them rolled as best we can, and then push into 10 and then working out. The mesh, again, there, set at 6 yards. And kind of how we're somewhat teaching it, you run versus man, sit versus zone. I think everybody kind of knows those rules on that. We're also teaching basically our H, to look across the field at the Sam. We're teaching our Y to look across the field at the rover, as I call it, and kind of get an idea. Like if the rover's running with the H, it's probably man. And at the same time, you should, the Y almost set a little bit of a pick there, but keep going. And H, same thing. If the Sam's running with the Y, it's probably man, keep going. If not, looking for the first hole, you sit, look for the ball. And where you're going to get good at this play is when you do really rep that settle and noose drill. And the big thing to me with that settle and noose drill, other than just the fundamentals of, making a catch, is the tuck and going straight up field. So we do want it, like if it's caught right here, we want him to tuck and go straight up. So that's one thing that we really do hit on it. We teach the mesh as the second look. A lot of people too are going to teach the mesh as your third look. I just don't want to be late to it. And you'll get a feel for the back too. I mean, the more you run this and you're picking a side, you get a feel for that back. Sometimes you can get to the back pretty quickly, but I do want them to look to the mesh, because if you're on time to that thing, it's pretty much always open as long as you're on time to it. It's not great if you're late. I mean, you can set the guy up for a bad day if you're late to it, but if you're on time to it, it's really good. And from what I notice, every time we run it, we got somebody open on the mesh. It's pretty crazy. But so we kind of teach our quarterback, like, the mesh is always open. Just know that.
Coach, you got a couple questions here.
Go for
the
it.
first one is, how many times do you throw 92 per game?
Whatever that number was divided by like 12 or 13. Let's see. 84 divided by, I don't know, 10, something like that. Maybe a little less than 10, something like that. You throw it a good amount. I mean, but it's not just mesh. It's not always just base 92. We're gonna, this comes off of our 92 post double wheel tag. Our snake, I'm kind of counting that as mesh as well, which is another variation of mesh. And then this. So really, everybody thinks we have a ton of ways of running mesh. We really don't. There is a lot of simplicity to it as well. There's essentially 3. There's a post wheel variation, there's the base way, and then there's the way we run our dagger variation of it, which we call snake. That's pretty much all we're really carrying on it. So anyway, but it can look like a lot. We can dress it up and make it look like a whole lot. So here's a WSU clip, and if it's not clear, guys, just let me know. But the first thing we want to teach our quarterback is you attack the side with the softest corner. So if we're in 2x2 like this, the side with the softer corner is where we want to go first, which in this scenario obviously is on the bottom. And then, so as we play this thing, there's your out. And your steps really can kind of vary as far as like how you do it or whatever, but we like it to be kind of a three, either a one big and settle, or you can do 1, 2, 3 and it's out. So it's kind of how your quarterback feels comfortable with it. I kind of like the idea of just one big and then getting that back foot in the ground and settling. As long as his feet and eyes are tied together as he goes through his reads, it's really not too big of an issue for us, but that's kind of how we would ideally want to do it. So you first look down here at the bottom, got the cushion, he throws the out, and there's your completion. Your mesh is it's not a great rub right there, but you're getting man underneath, so you want to kind of keep moving. As they go along here, again, if they're fairly even, you can do one of two rules kind of. You can pick your shorter side, like the right here, or you can pick your three surface side, so like the side that you're going to swing the back to. And I kind of real free with our quarterback as far as like where he decides to swing the back. I don't really care if he swings him to the right or to the left, just as long as he, as long as he knows and makes it right. But on 92, he can put the back on the right or the left.
Question for you here, Coach.
Yep.
Deep outer corner versus he's saying a deep outer corner is good versus soft cornerback like cover 3. They both play hard outside. What's the deal? Like, what are you telling them?
It's a true high corner. It turns into a true high corner if you get that. So if you get press, that's one where we're okay just winning, in all honesty, at the release. But we'd like to win inside. Win inside, step up, try to stack, essentially, and then a true high corner. And it's not the greatest look versus press, in all honesty, but a lot of times you get your mesh throws on stuff like that. But yeah, if it's true cover 2 or something like that, where it's a tight press corner or one man or something like that, yeah, it would turn into a true high corner versus that. But be a little funky, which we like, that the fact that it sometimes can kind of look like the old school shakes route where it goes in, up, out. That's a real tough route to cover in press man if you are trying to play press man on it. So and at the same time, even if it is press on both sides, we're still going to tell our quarterback to look there. I don't want him to just eliminate it. Like that's not a part of our deal really on anything. We want him to still get his eyes there. If the guy falls down, throw it to him, So we're still getting our eyes and getting our progression the same every single time. So it kind of looks the same as far as the timing of the whole read. I mean, that's really the same.
Another one here. What window drills do you do for those slot receivers?
Well, we don't really drill anything on that, which is going to sound weird, but we do a ton of 7-on-7. I can find an old schedule or something too and pull that up for you guys. We do a big 7-on-7 every single day. And as much as we run this play, whether it's off the post double wheel tag, the base way, or anything else, we are getting a ton of reps versus live bodies. Because we do it in routes on air as well. Against dummies, but you're going to get your best looks against live moving bodies. So, I mean, there's no way to duplicate that as far as where those windows are. A lot of times they end up on the opposite side tackle, and that's just naturally how it goes. And we tell our mesh runners they can receive the ball before they slap hands, but they can't stop until they've crossed and slapped hands. And we do really want them to slap hands and move on, just as we said, at 6 or under the mic, whichever one comes first. But that's kind of the base rule of it. So a lot of times, it's going to end up, like on this picture, it's going to end up right there. And then, the Y here can sit it here, or he's figuring out what he's doing, and you'll see. There it is. So you can kind of tell as it goes along. And then here's us, based off that rule I just told you, the ball should have gone on the bottom. This team, I think, won the state championship this year, this game that we played them. But, here's their rhythm of the 3 going up top. There's your mesh. The mesh sits, which is good because they're just dropping back. And throws the out up top, completes it. Here's another one. Again, picking the side with your softer corner. If they're fairly even like that, he chooses the 3 surface side, which would be with the back swing to the right. Rips it out up there. And then just kind of, again, there's your mesh. It's a little too shallow there for my liking, but with the mic kind of stepping down, you understand that he's going to go. So it's not always going to get to 6, but that's kind of what we get to. And I'll go over more cut-ups and stuff too as we kind of go along. But that's essentially how it would look. And let me get to this too. All right. This is this year for us. And when we're doing it like out of 2-back like this, the single, and the slot receiver on the other side are going to be the ones setting the mesh. Again, the single's always under. So, there's your mesh with your H and your Z, and then your X has the out. We're just swinging both backs to widen it out. It kind of looks like, the Hal Mummy way. Technically, this would be like a blue flop call because in that old school way of looking at it, because it would look the same as that. But this is blue 92 to us. And there's just throwing that out in rhythm. That's a good throw. A lot of times what we're looking for, too, by that corner, and this is kind of a real key coaching point, I think, on this, is you want that zone turn look right there. Where he's got his butt to the sideline and looking in. We consider that a zone turn. If he's got a zone turn to him, we're basically going to throw the out, because what we want to do is get in that back hip where he's blind and then rip it. So this is actually fairly well covered because the kid makes a good little flip right there. Because we kind of see it as that zone turn and getting in that back hip transition, it's also a really good throw. But so, yeah, that's kind of how we want to look. Again, just picking on the side with a softer corner. That would be up top. There's your out. And if it's you kind of get a feel for how that corner's playing too. If he's backing out like that, we kind of like it. If he's kind of sitting hard deck, not really moving his feet, not getting depth, we'll get off of it and then get to the mesh. Now the guy should keep running. They both should just go. You can get to the back too and be just fine. Here's another one from this year. Again, he's just getting so much depth backing out, even if it is a man turn, essentially. We're ripping that out. And then getting to, sometimes we throw the mesh. Here's one out of green, which is our 2-back set to the right. It's set fairly well. I'd like the Y to come a little bit down. He was really young for us, and he sets it just a little bit too deep. But because the X gets hit, it opens up the Y. And so, he gets off the out up top because he kind of stopped his feet. You can see right there, he's starting to plant his feet. Where he kind of hard decks right there. That's kind of a sign for him to get off of it. He's not continuing the back pedal, and he does man dive on it. So he gets off of it, comes to the mesh, and then you just got to feel. The best way you can really teach it is going 1, 2. 1, 2, 3. Well, the best way to do it really is just to see both. You can see both, you're going to be really good at it. Just find the open spot there. So this is an empty 92. Now it's a little bit different out of empty. Out of empty, the 2 inside guys right here, the ones setting the mesh, running the mesh. Well, we want them to keep going in empty. We don't want them to have the option to sit. So that is a little bit different. And then the H right here, number 2, he's going to run a true dig. So still reading it outside, looking for the softest corner first, and then getting to the mesh coming to that side to the dig. So it's a little bit different and empty. But again, just picking that softer corner, a zone turn down there. That's where he chose to go. Throws it out. So that's kind of how we work off that. Let's see if I can get back to the right. So, all right. That's our 3x1 version of 92. So this is just base 92 again. Got outs, out with the furthest outside guy. The post is not really a look for us. It's basically just taking coverage. We want the post to try and drag the Sam, hope the Sam walls with it vertically and take the safety out. So his whole deal is to really just take coverage. And then we're just doing the same thing. We're going out to mesh to back. It's not really any different. The big thing is when we're in early and late, the H has got to know he runs a post, whereas if we're an ace, he runs the mesh. That's kind of the only real teaching that we do as far as changing the look on just base 92. So, kind of can go through some of these as well. Looking at that out up top, zone turn, throw it, gets it complete. It's going to look the same with them as it does with us. Again, we're not going to do anything different than what they do. Gets off of it because the flat defender kind of got outside the H. So if he steps outside the H like that and you don't like, the idea of trying to throw that out with him kind of getting underneath it, obviously get off of it. Because he's expanded out to that out, he leaves this alley for the mesh coming, which is exactly what we want. And then it hits the mesh and there's, just get straight up field. That's kind of teaching as soon as you catch it. So, the more we do it, that's kind of how it's always going to look. This is from 2017, but starting with the out up top, soft corner, throw it. And you don't, just because we're in trips doesn't mean you always have to run it. You don't have to be in late from the right hash. It's, it's a good play to mix up too. Like here, we're in the middle of the field, but you're still in early. So you're always thinking about, gosh, that's a real long throw. It's a real long throw. Yeah, you can call your post double wheel variation in that scenario, which makes it a little bit, it's a little bit easier because it's an incoming route. But you also can, run early or late 92 from the middle. It does not have to always be on the hash. And I think a lot of times, when you draw it up, you kind of think, well, that's a long throw. It doesn't always have to be, but a lot of times too, that mesh is a real good option. Here again, throwing that out, the corner bails out real soft in his own turn, gets to the out. Try to show some maybe this year where we did get to the mesh. We threw it more this year than any other year, so that's why I say it's just a little bit easier to maybe go back and look at it. Here's one where he did get to the out. So, but yeah, anyway, that's kind of the base 92 rules right there.
Coach, is your quarterback always +3 in the gun?
Well, what do you mean as far as depth or whatever?
Let me see what the coach says. Coach, can you just elaborate a little further?
I kind of want his toe, toes at 5, basically. So, he can take a big like on these mesh throws, toes at 5 yards depth, basically. So we want him closer to 5, between 5 and 6. And then just one big step, essentially one big boom and ready to throw the out. So it's just one big gather, throw out, one big gather, not there, to the mesh, to the back. That's kind of how we want it to work. Now, if your quarterback's really good with footwork or he's just used to doing it the same way like everybody's taught since they're real young, that's fine too as far as just going, 1, 2, 3, out, or 1, 2, 3, reset, mesh, 1, 2, 3, reset back. You can do that and it worked just fine. So, Minshew, for example, was real good with his feet. Falk was too when they were at Washington State. They were more the true 1, 2, 3. And then you watched last year with like Anthony Gordon, it's a big pop, set, throw. So it's kind of however you want to do it. But that's as long as they're tied to their eyes and you have got the rhythm down and you're getting depth, that's the big thing. And with me, I'm more worried about them not stepping up than anything else. Like I don't want them to retreat and run out. Like that's, I want them to have a good feel for pocket presence and then step up. And that's really more important to me than anything else. But anything else? We good?
There was a question about on the post, you outside releasing it to protect the mesh.
We're really outside releasing it to protect the out. That's really the whole point of it. But We're also, yeah, a little bit to protect the mesh as well, because if that, you got to think of how defenses are taught, right? You want to wall two if you're getting four verticals. If you're in early and you're getting, or trips and you're running four verticals, and that Sam is in between number 3 and number 2, he's probably going to turn and wall two vertically until he sees something in the flat or he can get it underneath the curl. So we're using that same rule that they're taught kind of against them by running that post wall with 2, outside release it, wall 2, grab the safety, take them both out of there. And if with him outside releasing the Sam, it opens up that window to see the out, and there's nothing going underneath it, like sinking underneath it, although that would be a heck of a drop. But there's nothing really getting underneath it, and then you're just solely reading that corners technique. If he's flat-footed in a man turn, if that's the case, we're getting off of it. If he's deep in his own turn and you can get into the back hip, we're going to throw it. If not, we'll get off of it and get to the mesh. And if you get to the mesh again on time, you're going to be just fine. So hopefully that kind of makes sense. But, we also do tag posts out of it. You can tag single posts. It's really good against a cover 1 look or almost a 0-ish look if they're like flat lined in the back end across the board. With that being said, like here's a 92X post. He still throws the, still looking at the out first. You can do that. Does not matter just because you tag it. If the picture changes at the snap, say rotate or spin or something like that, you can always get off of it. But some of us doing it too. So here's one, for example, where we tagged like 92 Z posts. So we put the Z up top on a post. Because of how they were playing us earlier in the game, this time they popped in one high, and our quarterback was smart enough to still just be like, all right, I'm taking the out on the bottom because he's so soft, and he's in that zone turn stance pre-snap. He's already got his butt to the sideline. That's a real good look for us if we want to throw 92, and so anyway, he's just going to take that, which is fine. We still had the post up top tag. We don't really do a whole lot of this where we're just tagging a single post. Most of the time what we do is we're tagging a post and a wheel. And so, in that look right there, if we did it, here we got an X post tag. That's fine. Well, a lot of times what we'll do is we'll go Z post F wheel. So we'll like post the Z and wheel the back to the same side as the post. And here's one, too, where he's got the post tag and the wheel tagged. So there's your kind of look at, 92X post F wheel. Kind of what I was just talking about. So you're starting with the post 1. I think you could probably throw the post. He gets off it to the wheel. Wheel runs by him, throws the wheel. If you want to get off that too, the next look obviously in that one would be to the mesh. So it's a little bit different on our post wheel variation where, we're going post wheel mesh.
Coach, how does the mesh change for you in the red zone or goal line?
The mesh part really doesn't change too much. The post wheel tag does change a little bit. So we're always kind of teaching these posts really like 5 steps and then sticking it, really running the grass is kind of what we ideally want. But you can't, if you're on the 5, you can't run it. We don't really want them to run a 10-yard post. So we always teach them if you're on the 5, run a 5-yard post. Stick it on the goal line. If you're on the 9, run a 9-yard post. If you're on the 8, run an 8. So we're always just teaching them get to the goal line and stick. So that's kind of our base rule. And a lot of times when play doesn't look good on the goal line, it's because of that. With that being said, we do run more of our post wheel variation inside the red zone than really anywhere else. So I'll try to find a look at that. Let's see. Okay. Let me refresh this because it kind of jacked up whenever I sorted it. All right, so this is kind of your post double wheel look, and a lot of, if you're in green or 2 back, just imagine that this H is back here, and that's kind of what it's going to look like. It's going to be post 2 wheels and then your mesh coming underneath. And that's our more likely tag that we're going to run off mesh inside the red zone, just in all honesty. Post being your kind of your first look, sneaking a peek to your wheel, and then to your mesh. We still really want to, emphasize not being on it too long because we want to be on time to the mesh. That's really the more important part. But, here's kind of your post wheel variation that you'll see from, Washington State, just a, 92 post double wheel. and looking at your post first. You run with the wheel, get to the mesh, drop it underneath right there, and that's pretty good. Again, your Y, setting the depth, sitting, zone, and it's hit underneath. That's pretty good. Here's one of the bowl game last year against man. It's real good in the red zone. I like it because you get a lot of man, and you get a lot of that like cover. I think they call it cover 7 type looks and stuff. And this is a real good way to beat that type of look. Again, getting that switch, he throws it up top to the mesh. That dude makes an awesome catch. But kind of getting to how we've done it in the past as well. This is from 2017. Here's your mesh, there's your post, and that switch happens down there. Kind of got him lost. Hit the post. We threw it a ton this year too.
Coach, to which position were most of the picks being thrown?
Most of the interceptions being thrown, it varied up. It pretty much varied up. I hadn't really looked at that too much as far as, where the ball was kind of going. But if I had to guess, it was a lot of times where the whole thing kind of got jacked up off schedule and we got pressure, and we had to move and something like that happens. But again, a lot of times if we're throwing picks on this play, if we throw an interception, it generally happens real early in the year. That's just kind of how it always goes. And by the end of the year, we're a whole lot cleaner on it. And I think it's just kind of the time of high school too. I mean, the more live reps you get at it, the better you're going to be at mesh. There's no way really around that. So, more times you run in games, you're going to be better at it. Here's one, more in the open field, 9-2 post wheel, real bailing back. Quarterback does a good job of stepping up and getting it to the mesh right there. He got drilled, but he does a good job of, the mesh sits, puts it on the backside, gets up. And then here's dressing it up. So the same way of how that thing kind of looked in two-back, where we were in green and we ran 92 post double wheel, where we had, if we're in two-back, imagine this one being over here. You got wheel, mesh, and then your post coming from your Z. Here's the same thing. We're just going early H move 92 post double wheel. So in early, moving the H across, and then you got 92 and post double wheel. So there's your post wheel. Same thing is out of green. And quarterback does a real good job, and the mesh is real good here too. You see them slap hands, sits, caught right in the mesh area, tucks, go straight up and score. So you're trying to make it easier on your quarterback to understand, like, this is the same thing as if we were in green, but you're really dressing up by going early, showing it out 10 personnel, and doing the same thing. Here's one just staying in early. Again, your mesh coming. There's one wheel, there's your other wheel, and there's your post. I think you could probably throw the post. He gets off of it, throws the mesh to the Y. He sits. I want him to get straight up, but still does a pretty good job of sitting down there.
Question here, Coach.
Yeah.
Actually, 2 questions. How many variations do you go into each game with, or do you go in with all of them every week?
We have them all. I mean, obviously, when you're repping them all, you kind of have them all. But really, your main variations here are like on post double wheel. You have early and late 92 post double wheel, and then you have green and blue 92 post double wheel, and then your other variations as far as your motions. That's with no motions. You can go early H move, or you can go ace H move and do the same thing. It would look the exact same. So as far as the motions, we may carry one of those motions each week, but the base 92 post double wheel play is gonna be there every week. And just because, especially as much as we throw 92, 95, and 6 again, which is your mesh play, your Y cross play, and your 4 verticals, like our 90s games based off that. We'll throw your 93s, your H wheels, and your sail play and scissors, and we'll do all that stuff too. But I mean, we're gonna basically hang our hat on those 3 for the most part, and so we're gonna carry our variations of it into pretty much every game. But, you know, we may rep one variation of that motion more so than the other ways.
And could you just go over the wide receiver alignments again?
Yeah. So in Ace, that's a pretty good, you know, I don't really want the Z and the X that tight. I'd rather them be kind of keeping their base alignment. Maybe, you know, we teach him in base rules just to kind of be on the top of the numbers. With him run this out, he cuts it down way too far. This is week 1 last year. But, you know, I want him to probably take just one more step inside. The X is a little too far inside as well. I don't want them to change how they line up on anything just because of the play. You know, they did it here, but I ideally wouldn't like that. But and so, I mean, and then if you're on a hash, you know, you're moving in a little bit with it being on a hash instead of staying all the way out in that numbers. That's, you know, that's too intense of a throw. So we do kind of let them, you know, if we're on the left hash, the Z would probably be somewhere like right there if we were in early, right in that area. Here's a good example. Like, this kid's a junior from this past year of looking at the mesh. He kind of got, you know, a hard deck corner there where he's, you know, he's not, you know, not dropping back or backpedaling anymore. He kind of sits on it, not in his own turn. So he gets off of it. Want the H to sit. Again, week 1, stop. But the quarterback still does a good job of getting off of it, putting it on him. And, you know, moving on that one. Here's one, too, where it's in the middle of the field. So you can see their alignments there. Again, they're too tight rather than be right here. And the X is more right. The X is right. But, you know, backpedaling out, just throwing the out there. So that's just a base 92. Then if they're running post wheel, they can, you know, they're going to keep their natural alignment too because they're coming in. So we want them to widen out when they're coming in, you know. I want them not wide now, but stay wide if they're coming in.
Coach, does the progression change if a play is tagged, or does the progression stay the same?
Well, if it's tagged, if it's 92 post double wheel, it's going post, peeking at a wheel real quick to the mesh. Where if it's you know, normal, if it's just 92, you're going to one of your outs, to one of your capped outs to the mesh to the back. So it's a little bit different, but the timing, you know, it's more about the timing. We really want the timing just not be late coming to the mesh. So you kind of get a feel for that wheel. And also, in all honesty, we don't throw the wheel a whole lot when we're going just like early 92 post wheel or double wheel. It's mostly going post mesh back. That's really how it's kind of working.
And another question here. Coach was saying he's seen teams utilize the over the ball sit route. Have you messed with that at all?
No, not that variation of it. No. Yeah.
And that was from the outside receiver. I'm sorry, I didn't.
Yeah, from the outside receiver. I know what you're talking about. There's a lot of people who do that. That's how you know, Coach Holgerson has been doing it for a while at West Virginia and at Houston. But no, just because we've been so good at keeping those two options, both options on both sides. You know, the way they're doing it too, a lot of times that wheel's kind of your first look because you're getting both those guys going in and then looking wheel to mesh come. It's more like a true pick play. This way it's, you know, our mesh is really sitting in zone and it's kind of traditional 92 the way we're doing it. But no, I've not messed with that one. But we have a variation that's kind of similar to that as far as getting something over the ball, which is the last one that I'll kind of go over. So the post F wheel play, you know, this is kind of your post double wheel variation out of ace. Now, if you're an ace, you're not really doing two wheels. You're doing just one, which is our tailback coming out of the backfield. So, you know, when we're in early and late or trips formation, you got post double wheel. If you're in two back, you got post double wheel with both backs running the wheel. And then here in ace, in our 2x2 formation, you know, we're going to always leave one on the out in case we want to do that. Tag one of the outside guys in the post and wheel the back to that side. In which case it goes post wheel mesh. So, I mean, that's, you know, that's kind of our post wheel tag out of 2x2. And So here, here's a 92 Z post F wheel. Safety just steps down because of that mesh coming in. And as soon as he steps down, our quarterback does a good job of setting his foot, throwing it out in front. Mesh is kind of, when the mesh is getting banged on a bunch, your outside guys are generally going to be open if you got, you got the right thing on. A lot of people are concerned with our mesh play, obviously, too. So here's a 92 Z post F wheel, same play. He's checking the post, too. Everything kind of comes in. And there's a wheel.
Coach, how much detail are you going into when teaching coverages to your quarterbacks?
Yeah, we teach it in the off season. Obviously, we go over coverages a bunch, but because of everything we're doing being so pure progression based, I want them to know what they're in. If I ask them on the sideline, I want him to be able to answer me. He's generally pretty good at it, but more so I want them to look at the structure of how they line up. Like leverage, numbers, and space is more important in my mind than really this is the coverage, this is what attacks that coverage. Because our stuff's kind of good against everything. It's not like there's a real coverage that stops this more so than anything else. There are things that can give it a little bit more trouble, but we feel like, we're going to run it against whatever you line up in on defense. It doesn't matter. We're going to run 9-2 post double wheel every week. It doesn't – I don't care, how you play it. But so, he's got to figure out numbers, space, leverage more so than anything else, and then corner technique. We are real big on zone turns versus man turns because it sets up a lot of the other things we do. So I do want to figure out, how they're turning. And a lot of times you can figure out, how well a high school secondary is coached by the corners. If one corner continuously man turns the entire game on tape, and the other corners over there zone turning the whole time on tape, well, they're not being real, coached too much in detail if this is how I want you guys to do it or anything like that. They're just doing what they naturally feels comfortable. So, I am going to try and figure out before the game, like, okay, 4 is the one that zone turns and 6 is the one that man turns. I'd like to know that, but, so we will figure that stuff out. And Z, that's all right. Those are my 2 clips from 19 of Z post F wheel that you just saw right there. With both times we hit the wheel. So it's not something we do a ton, but see some if we got another one. All right, here's another one. This is a double wheel, blue 9-2 double wheel, 9-2 X post double wheel. It's going post wheel, which they're not getting out quick enough there. It's a mesh. If you got to the mesh, you'd be just fine. Yeah, and that team won the state championship that year. Here's one too. That's from 2016. Double wheel. Got a one high look, so you like the idea of tagging the post. And we give him kind of freedom to tag it too. So if you're in blue and he's got 92 on, he can change it to post double wheel. And again, it's kind of starts off that 6th day, that first day install that I kind of talked about, where we're big on tagging, on teaching our guys our tagged routes. If he just gives 2, he gives like a simple signal, say it's that, you just give the 9-2 signal, look at the X and tap his head or something like that. I'm not going to tell you exactly what we do, but just tap his head and then tell both backs, hey, wheel. And then you got it. You're in 92 post double wheel from 92, and it's real simple. Snake is our 3x1 dagger, basically variation of it. So snake is a little bit different because on snake, I don't want the meshes to sit. They're going to keep going. Similar to how we did it out of empty, where we had the dig coming from the H. Same thing here. We got the dig coming from, this is drawn up backwards, but we got the dig coming from the X. That should be the X. That should be the Z. We got the dig coming from the X, getting into the middle of the field. And with that case, we want the meshes to keep moving. Think of this more so as 3x1 shallow. than 3x1 mesh because it's really more shallowish. You got a post from the H, you got your dig from the Z, and then your shallow coming. Think of it that way. So just the same way as if you're in 2x2 and you ran, if I drew this up and you ran like, I got to move this so I can't really see. All right, same thing. If you're in two back or 2x2, sorry, and you're running, hold on, you run shallow, right? Shallow, dig. You got a vertical or a post, it doesn't matter. And then your vertical, and then the way we do it, we cross his face and go to flat like that. All right, so that is how we run 91-3 or Y shallow, just like how everybody else kind of runs. All right, if we were running snake from late, thing is you still got the dig, which in our case the dig's kind of coming like this. All right, so it's looking. Now, granted, let me get the letters and everybody right, and then that'd be your wheel. So that's basically snake, with that being the X, the H, the Y, the Z, and then your F. So it's kind of more shallowish than it is a mesh, but we consider it a mesh because you got your cross, and that's a chromie drawing, but I was trying to do it fairly quickly because I'm kind of running out of time. So that's sort of what it looks like. We used to teach that real trail technique right there. We want the Z to really run behind the H, like get on his butt and then cut in. Now, so we're really just teaching that Z to really speed turn as best you can. So push. If you can get behind the H a little bit, use them as a trail so you're not really getting bumped on too much. That's great. But speed turn in there, and then you're really looking to sit and zone. If you don't know, keep going. Run flat across the field. You get a lot of explosives on this play from snake. There's an example of kind of somewhat of that trail technique, kind of getting behind him, speed cutting in, and working across. Your shallows again there. Don't stop. So your read for this for your quarterback, we want him to peek the wheel, the single wheel from the back real quickly. And it's kind of just making sure they're not running man with the Z coming across the field. For doing that, you got the wheel, throw the wheel, and score, obviously. But what we want is we're also just holding that weak safety off for just a split second. So we're catching, looking over there, just trying to really look through grass, make sure the corner doesn't run, hold the weak safety. They're coming back to the dig, to the dig, to the mesh coming. And it's really just dig to mesh coming, dig to mesh coming, dig to mesh coming. Now you watch us throw it, we're going to hit the wheel a lot of times because people run with the Z because our Z is our best wide out. So if they're running with the Z, we'll throw the wheel. But in their sense, if you watch them run it, it's a lot of dig, mesh coming, dig, mesh coming, dig, mesh coming. The post for them, the way I drew this thing up, the post for them is not really a part of the look. It's kind of similar to how we did late 92 and early 92. It's really just trying to take coverage. You're trying to expand the SAM. Again, he's going to wall two vertically, just like if we're running four verticals on him. Well, that's great. Wall two vertically, and then take out the strong safety with that post, and then speed cut that thing right around him. And then you're kind of curl flatting the SAM with this dagger concept of the dig coming in the shallow. So it's kind of how it looks. And it's a play that they've ran for forever. There's kind of your trail technique, and Sam walls back with two there, which, like we said, or walls back with 2 and 3 there. And there's your shallow coming. Get to some of us running it. This is from 18. So standing still, trying to hit the meshes. A lot of times we get a lot of people trying to, again, just bang our meshes. Snake's a real good answer. Somebody just constantly wants to hit your meshes. And they're a little wide out there, the X and the H. Here's another one. Shallow. Bailing out. So you can see how it kind of turns into 3x1 shallow real quickly. And then, you know, this year, there's one we got to dig to, but when we get to, like, dang, I didn't have any snake on there. All right. Let's filter it or whatever. So you can kind of, all right. So, you know, here's, again, sort of dressing it up. So we're going ace, Y move, which just gets us into late. And then running snake and the wheel, you know, again, you want to peek that wheel real quick to hold him. And then if they run man with it, and he kind of just, you know, saw both happen and flip it to the back with nothing home if they're doing that, which, you know, not great. And let's see. Well, this is another ace Y move, getting us to late. Run snake. That's fairly rare when that one happens. And I think, you know, the X there could, in that scenario, go right now. But I was harping on him all year long of trying to get around that guy to open up the mesh coming, the shallow coming. But good job seeing it go there, because, you know, it'd be kind of later in your progression as far as getting to that one. Another snake. Really exaggerating that trail technique on that one. Again, we're not kind of got away from that a little bit later in the year just because it was kind of getting slow, and I didn't want him to go straight in like that. And we're not the fastest team in the world, so we can't really afford to give up any kind of speed. So instead of him coming straight in and then going up, I'd rather him kind of climb to it and then going up. But, you know, got to the shallow coming. And again, a lot of people were concerned with our Z, is he's our best one. There they pass it off. We got to the dig. So that's kind of snake. And I talked about, you know, dressing up a little bit there too. Dressing up the different stuff with the motions, and that's basically the gist of it right there. But that's really all of our tags. We just got 92 post double wheel, tagging a post and F wheel, which we only do out of 2x2, and then our snake variation out of 3x1. Try to see some more of the, you know, you can get real fancy with it. We got a 4-strong variation too that we run on the goal line. I'll draw it. I'll try and draw it a little bit better. So I'll just make it a goal line play. All right. So nice little 2-point play for us, but we'll go. Sorry. He'll cut it down a little bit because he's going to have to for the motion, but we're going to go. This is ace, H move, and then we'll run 92. Sorry. Post. Oh boy. See on this. Post wheel, and then F shoot. Something like that. And so, you know, when we do that, it's going post, shoot, mesh coming. And been a pretty good little 2-point play for us too. You're kind of creating that 4-strong thing. So that's a more rare one of getting that post wheel F shoot. But Let's see if I do have a clip of it anywhere. Yeah, here you go. All right, so here ace, H move, and then you got 92 post wheel, F shoot, comes 4 strong. I think every time, they didn't throw it this past year, but every time they threw it in 18, I'm pretty sure the ball went to the back. It's kind of how it went, but. Post wheel, F shoot, H move, 92 post wheel, F shoot. And then I'll show you the one time we ran it this past season. Find it here. All right, so again, same thing. Ace, H move, 92 post wheel, F shoot. They just, again, he's looking post first to the shoot, to the mesh coming. The mesh coming's got to go. It's, I want him to go up, obviously, not to just get crashed, but he's got to get across there a little quicker than that. X on the bottom. But looking, again, right in the window. So, that's the 2-point play variation too. But just line up an early and run a 92 post double wheel too is, that's a real good goal line play for us as well. But I like that down there. That's just kind of a personal thing on it too. But yeah, so. Guys, got any questions? Shoot them my way.
Yeah, here's one, Coach. Would 92 post wheel F shoot take the place of 618 post wheel?
No, although they're very similar. That's a real good point. They're very similar, and it's probably a real good reason, and on my honest opinion, of why they didn't run it last year in 2019, because they just run so much stick post wheel, where you're still getting that 4 strong play. But it's a real similar way to do something real similar. Yeah, that's the best way I can put it. But as far as, you can do that. If you don't run it, you can hang your hat on 618 post wheel and be just fine.
Do you do any mesh return?
No, I don't do any mesh return. Again, it's not a bad play, but kind of can only carry so much the way we do it. And we kind of select our package and what kind of went from there.
Coach, can you just go over the steps in the path of the back on the wheel?
Yeah, so that's a good question, because that was one that I was constantly trying to fight with our back on how to run it. And I think just some of these, these F wheels would be good to look at. So basically what I told him is, he puts them on the right, which is kind of how we want to do it. I told him to pretty much just run a straight line at where the corner lines up pre-snap. So I kind of want him just going straight at that, and then once he feels it all coming in, going up. And that's kind of the best way we did it. The best result I got out of it was, you'll see it kind of here, just running straight at the corner and then coming up. It's the same thing. Like if we're on the right hash, he's running that wheel. Again, it's a lot easier because you're just going right at the corner and up. But we were, you got to be fast there to do that, obviously, or have, make it as straight a line as you possibly can to get him out there quick enough. So that's kind of how we did it. This is the widest we would run it, where you're in the middle of the field. It's not like, and that's even closer really to the left hash than the right, but we really wouldn't run much 92 Z post F wheel from the left hash. You're more likely to run 92 X post F wheel from the left hash. So yeah, but that's kind of the technique of it. Run at him and go up.
Coach, can you just touch on the quarterback's drop or footwork on that 2-point play?
Yeah, he probably took the big one and set like we talked about. Again, as long as his feet are tied to his eyes, I'm not crazy about, one way or the other. But what I do want isn't to, I always thought it times up best with those outs, like our base way of running 92. If he takes one big, kind of gathers himself, make sure he gets all of his back cleats in the ground and throws, that's the best way I think you can do it. But if you are a guy who's, from, youth, always gone 1, 2, 3, boom, that'd be fine too. So even if on that 2-point play, where you're down there on, that close to the goal line, that it's not a true post anymore. It turns more into slant wheel. Again, just because we're teaching them like stick it on the goal line, kind of stick it on the goal line type deal. So in that sense, he's almost taking his quick game drop where it's the one big throw. I mean, that's kind of what we want. One big, if you don't get the post, reset to the shoot to the mesh coming. So that'd be kind of how we would do it.
Well,
And he's got to know that. I mean, he should know that, I mean, okay, we're on the, 5-yard line. It's not a deep post anymore. I mean, he should know that.
we'll end on this one, Drew, because I know you got to get rolling. But Coach just wants to know what was the practice and meetings looking like while you were at Wazoo last year?
Yeah, it's pretty funny. I mean, they're exactly how everybody kind of explains them, but all the stories go as far as sitting in a Coach Leach quarterback meeting, but it's real monotoned in the back of the room with a clicker kind of going through it, and it's there's no real teaching. It's kind of just like, see that guy? He's covered. See that guy? He's covered. Now that one's open. Throw it to him, and it's as simple as that. Really kind of goes, but he is kind of going through the progressions of it. And he is teaching them. I mean, there's no doubt. But a lot of times, what they're just giving them to is a formation and check, which check would just be, you kind of call the play, you decide what you want to do. And in things like that, a lot of times he would just start the play with the question of where'd you start, especially when they got in their 4 verticals package, which is a whole nother deal in itself. And like I said, the first day is a 6-day, which is the first practice I saw with this through 4 verticals the entire game, or the entire day in practice. And then they watched the film from later that night with the coaches, and then the next day they watch it with the actual quarterbacks. And the first question he pretty much asked every single quarterback on every cut-up was, where'd you start? And so there is no real true progression with how they're teaching that play. That's a little bit different, but he did want to know where their eyes were going first, because they kind of, again, that's not really a coverage-based deal. It's really a leverage and technique-based deal. But it will really change your mind on how to run 4 verticals, that's for sure.
Coach, you got time for one more question?
Yeah, I'm good.
If snake is basically a variation of 3-by-1 shallow, why do you read dig to shallows instead of the other way around?
You can go shallow to the dig too. I just wanted to, because that peak is getting that kind of weak safety off deep. It's kind of like going from high to low to high, where here I'd rather him just go high across down. That's kind of the best way to do it, just because I want him to make sure that weak safeties is getting off and defending that wheel, passing off the shallow, coming, looking for the wheel going. And you're also holding him off the dig, because if that dig is coming in and you just start looking to the left like that, you're shallow, you're going to miss that weak safety coming down and diving on that dig. So you do want to hold him for just a second. And because you're holding him, you're keeping your eyes on that same level, that secondary level to dig to shallow. So that's kind of why. Otherwise, you'll probably get the weak safety picking the ball off a little bit more.
Absolutely. And real fast, is there a reason that your O-line comes out of 3-point as opposed to 2?
Yeah, head coach. I mean, that's kind of his deal on it. He liked the 3-point stance of being able to fire off. And we were so good in 18 to run the ball, which we've never been good at running the ball. But in 18, we were pretty good at it. We had a 2,000-yard tailback as a sophomore. And he, we were good up front for the first time really since I've been there. And because of that, we've been good up front, but we've always been more of a pass protection type team. But because we could run the ball. I mean, we were coming out low and firing and that type of stuff. But I mean, an ideal world, if you could, I don't know, guards in a 2. I like my tackles in a, or guards in a 3. I really do like my tackles in a 2, ideally for me. But at the same time, if they're all 2s, I'm cool with that too. If they're all 3s, I'm gonna do what the head coach says. So there you go.
Awesome stuff, Coach. Really appreciate you spending the time. If there's what's the best way they can reach if they want to reach out to you? Twitter handle, email?
Yeah. Again, Drew C. Piscopo is my my Twitter handle. That's probably the best way. Just send me a message or a message on there, and if you got any questions or anything like that on there, just holler at me.
Awesome. Appreciate you coming through, Coach.
Yeah.
Definitely awesome stuff, and you know, so far, man, definitely you had the most attendees. So, you know, clearly people wanted to hear what you had to say, and it was a ton of great information. Just like all the other Clinic Talks guys, this will be available on the drive a little later today. But yeah, it was awesome, Coach, and you know, we'll have to talk, and you know, if you're wanting to get back on next week, man, we'd love to have you.
Yeah, sure. We'll figure something out. But yeah, that'd be fun to get on and maybe talk a little bit of 4 verticals and
Beautiful.
how we do that. That'd be pretty fun. Because I want to get into that, but I knew I probably wouldn't have the time because I that's actually the first time I've actually got through that mesh presentation. I try to get through it a little bit quicker. So
yeah, let's do that. Let's do that for next week, man, for sure.
Yeah, sure.